सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति The proof of existence of the world is perception. Because we see the world, we have to account for how that is happening. That is why we are studying the perception here. Because if you don't see, there is no world. If there is no world, there is no problem for us to enquire about it. Isn't it? You have to enquire about that which is known to you. What is known to us is the world. And the proof we have is our perception. And when you process perception, we get two different ideas. One group of people say it is the creation of the subject, mind. They are called the Idealists. It is the mind that is projecting the world out there. There is nothing out. It is your mind that is creating it. So this is one school, one group of thinkers. Another group of thinkers say, world is there, you are only seeing it, that's all. You are only hearing, you are only smelling, you are only tasting. So you see or you don't see has got nothing to do with the world outside. It is standing independent of your cognition. So the subject is not relevant at all for the existence of the world. So this is the two ideas, very basic ideas. Just doing a recap of what we have seen because there was a gap. So just a TV serial we do recap. First 5 minutes they do a recap of what happened in the last week. Right. The man came back from office, this lady prepared coffee and gave it to him. This is what happened in 1 week. So they show that. Same way here. All that has happened was only these two. Right. What did we do in the last 4 classes? That's all we have seen. Of course, we discussed about what is the meaning of the word subject. We have to define certain words. We need to understand few specific terms that we will be using right through our discussion. Those two primary words we have seen is these two words, subject and object. Subject is the perceiver, knower, cognizer, seer, hearer, smeller, taster, toucher. English people will kill you. Those who know English, you don't care about it. Really. This is called a subject. The one who is perceiving. The perceiver is the subject. Then what is object? That which is perceived is the object. Whatever we see, whatever we know, whatever we experience, whatever we cognize, the cognized, the seen, touched, felt, heard, all that is coming in the category of object, the perceiver. Then we also saw what is the nature of subject and what is the nature of object. Then we wanted to enquire who is the real subject. There we saw two things. The world were to be the object, then the senses become the subject. the senses itself is perceived, known, experienced. So therefore, who is knowing that? Mind is that which knows the senses. Therefore, by the basic definition of perceiver and the perceived, we have to categorize now the senses into the bracket of the perceived and the mind in the category of the perceiver. Then we found the mind itself is perceived. Right? Then we see, yes, if mind itself is perceived, then there is something other than the mind that is standing there and perceiving the mind. So that becomes the perceiver and the mind now becomes the perceived. So we have two things now: subject, object, then relative subject and absolute subject, relative object and absolute object. By definition, we have seen what is subject. Subject can never become the object. Subject is different, object is different. Only then perception is possible. Both cannot be the same. Subject and object cannot be one and the same. So they are two different things. Applying that rule, we said there is something other than the mind has to be there, perceiving the mind. What is that? That is what is referred as pure consciousness or sakshi, witness, the self, Atman, God principle, whatever. We use different words. In this context, we use the word pure consciousness. So there we find, what is it? Absolute subject, which means the subject will never, at no point of time, that can become an object. That is called absolute subject. So what you have to do is, perception, two things you have to put in the flow chart: subject, object. Then under subject, two. What is it? Relative, absolute. Same way, object also, relative, absolute. So absolute subject is what? Pure consciousness. Then go the other side. What is absolute object? No point of time that object can become a subject. That is called absolute object. Perpetually it will be object only. It will never change to anything else. That is this. What is that? That is the world. The sense objects. The world of objects. That is absolute object. Perpetual object. That is. Then you have relative subject, relative object. What is it? Senses and mind becomes relative subject and relative object. Then to make it simplified, we have bundled both the relative subjects together and relative objects together as one mind, so that it becomes easier for us to study the equations. Because senses also operating as part of the mind. Indriyas. When I say senses, what I mean is the indriyas, not the organs. It's physical. We are not talking about that. We are talking about the sense center. Where is the sense center? Where is that indriya? Indriya is part of the mind only. Therefore, we said the senses and mind, indriyas and manas, together we have bundled it and we call it as mind, one word. So now we are having three things. One is the object, another one is subject in the relative analysis. Then we have another analysis. Now, Vedantic theory of perception alone discusses the secondary aspect. As far as the idealist and realist were concerned, there is no Sakshi, there is no pure consciousness. They don't do all this analysis. Vedanta does all this analysis. Right? This is not the idealist thinking or realist thinking. Vedanta says, classifies it like that. To make us understand better. To present its ideas clearer, it explains this. So here we say, the object is the world, subject is the mind. Then Vedanta goes one step further and says, there is one pure consciousness standing behind the subject. Also, is going to explain that now. It is not only standing behind the subject, it is standing behind the object also, as a substratum. So, the object and the subject mind, the sense objects, the world plus mind, both are operating on the surface, interacting on the surface. The substratum for both is the same Sakshi. The pure consciousness is the substratum for both. So, whatever you are perceiving is where you see, you vouch for the existence of the world. Therefore, we use one more word. Apart from these two words, subject and object, we are using perception, subject, object. Another word we use in this chapter is creation. Now, when we use the word creation, what you need to understand is creation means perception. Don't think in our normal sense. In our usual context, in the usual sense of the term creation means bringing something new into existence. That's called creation. A pot maker made a pot. He created a pot. What was it, sir? Earlier there was only clay. There was no pot. Now he brought the pot out of the clay. This is a creation of pot. Pot. That is not the way you have to take it in this context. In the context, we use the word creation. Suddenly he starts using the word creation here. Now this term creation is not in that sense. In this here, it means you are perceiving the world. In that perception alone, you have created the world. Right? If you have not perceived the world, you have not created the world. You are seeing a flower. Therefore, you have created the flower. Since you are seeing the flower, you ask the question, who kept the flower there? How the flower came into existence here? Then you have to account for it. This perception, the act of perception is what is referred as creation here. Then we ask this question, okay, the substratum of Brahman, the interaction happens between, on the surface, the interaction happens between the object and the subject, as a result of which the perception happens. That perceived is what you are calling as world. There you have created the world. And then you are asking to account for the world. The final account of the world will be given in the next chapter. Right? Now he is only moving with that same principle. Fundamental principle of education we have seen in the introduction itself. Basic principle of education is to move from the known to the unknown. right? If you have to gain the knowledge of an unknown, you have to process it only through what is known to you. Let's say when you go for language class, right? They will teach that language in the language that is known to you. How to speak Hindi in 30 days. Right? The whole thing should be Hindi, no, in that. You will find a Kannada there, you will find a Tamil there, you will find English there, you will find a Marathi there, you will find this there, you will find all other languages actually. Why it is given in all the languages? Because if you have to understand a new language, it is possible only through a known language. Initially. After a stage, what happens? After a stage, they will say what? Don't do this mistake. This is a thumb rule they give. Do not think in another language and translate and speak in this language. When I started learning English, this is what they told me. Hey, what the mistake, you know what you're doing? You are constructing the sentence in Tamil in your mind and then translating that into English and then speaking. You cannot do that. Learn to construct the sentences itself in English, in the mind. Don't translate. Hey, that is how you taught me, no, beginning. That's why you say, we had, in my school, we had an English teacher who will teach English in Tamil. Why English in Tamil? Because all of us know only Tamil in the class. None of us knew English. Now, if he starts coming and speaking in English, all his expertise if he brings in, none of us will understand a word of it. Like when I joined in our college Arabic class, we would ask our Arabic teachers to speak in Arabic. He will tell him, sir, even if you want to scold, doesn't matter, scold in Arabic. Doesn't matter. Why? So musical to hear. Certain, few languages are there. They are very, very musical. Like Telugu. Such a musical language. Even to a person who doesn't know the language, it is pleasing to the ears, the sound. So, anything unknown can be known only through the known. You cannot teach unknown through unknown. This is the basic rule of education. Therefore, we are analyzing here. First one is perception is the step through which we create the world. A creation of the world happens through perception. Therefore, we are analyzing perception and then giving an account for the perception and the perceived world. The accounting gets completed in the next chapter, saying all that in the surface is illusion. The substratum is the reality. What is perceived on top of that, the surface, is illusory. Illusion in the sense of what? Both the subject, also the object. Many people think, Vedanta says world is illusion. No, Vedanta says you are illusion. The mind is also illusion, which is perceiving the world. Now, this part we cannot take. How do you say I am illusion? No. I am real. This is where, go back to theory of perception. That is where perception theory is needed. Without this theory of perception, you're progressing to the discussion of illusion, maya, mithya, this vada, that vada, and all will be just the words. You will not be able to translate that into a living reality. Why there is a gap? There's a huge gap is there. Why there is a gap is because of this. We do not Study that in that progressive manner in which you are supposed to study. So that's why this chapter is important one. So first we understand these four words. Perception is synonymous to creation. Two words. Subject, object. One group of people put the entire responsibility of perception and creation on the subject. They are called idealists. Another group of people put the entire responsibility of perception and creation on the object. They are called the realists. This is a basic idea. And then of course we have seen what is the stand, on what basis they claim, what is their argument, what is the objection for that. Of course we did not go to their, how they replied to that and all, we didn't go into those details, but basically this much is enough to start with at least. Then we have moved to realist. What is the stand of a realist and what is the objection to the realist? This much we have seen. And he is quickly recapping that again before progressing into the theory of perception. Vedantic theory of perception. Right. Yes.
Page 298, Vedantic Theory of Perception. The theories of idealism and realism have accented the participation of the subject and object, respectively, in the creation of the world. They have exposed their limitation in their leaning entirely towards one of them. The idealist has been rigid in holding on to the subject alone, and the realist to the object. The Vedantic theory of perception softens their view to accommodate both their stands. It finds the meeting point to explain the phenomenon of the world. The idealists have observed that the world could not have arisen without the action of the subject, that there can be no world without the play of the mind, without thoughts, that the mind's participation is necessary for perceiving the world. In the absence of the mind, there can be no perception of the world. The idealists assert that. So far as this observation is concerned, they are right. But they take a step further to declare that there is nothing apart from the subject mind responsible for the creation of the world. It is the action of the subject, mind, thoughts alone that produces the world, nothing else, and that the object plays no part in it. Idealists are right insofar as they hold that the world could not have arisen without the subject, without the mind. But they err when they declare that nothing else, nothing other than the mind is responsible for the creation. They err in rejecting the participation of the object.
So this is the basic flaw of the idealists. They put the entire responsibility to the mind's participation. There is no role played by the object at all. They go to the extent of saying there is no object at all, actually speaking. Actually, the object, whatever we are seeing, is just a projection of our mind. That's it. There is nothing out there. It is only the projection. You say, no, it cannot be. You cannot put the entire responsibility on the subject alone. Could not have arisen. Why it cannot arise? That's why a realist comes and gives his objections and his arguments. See, so we say, you see that subject, I see a flower. That's the example we are going to see in this topic. Flower means all that world is, entire world of objects is used as one object, flower. So I see the flower. I am not seeing the road. I am not seeing the table. I am not hearing this, not hearing that. Does it mean they don't exist? Of course, it doesn't exist to my mind. As of now. The moment I shift my attention, it is suddenly there. If it is a projection of the subject mind alone, then how is the possibility of a common world where when I say, hey, get that rose flower, you just go to the room, there is a rose flower there, red rose is there, bring that. Say, when you go there, you see the same red rose that I have projected. Suppose, let's say, that the rose is purely Ishwaran's mind's projection. Right? It is not there. Nothing is there outside, let's say. Then, when I ask you to go and get that, which rose flower you will bring? You will bring that rose flower which is to be projected by your mind. Correct? How is it possible that my mind's projected rose flower will be picked up by your mind? Example what? Hallucination. Or we say it is the, when a person is, in a state of hypnotized, in a hypnotic state, I will see a lake, I will fish, and I keep that fish in that bucket there. To me, that lake, that fish is all real. When I tell you, hey, bring that fish, and imagine you go also bring that fish, that means what? How is it possible? That is an impossibility. In Hollywood movies, it is possible. I can enter into your dream, and from that dream, I can change your, ideas. Hollywood possible, and it is nice to see also on screen and come back. Right? But you cannot bring that into reality. Since we are all living in that, there is something common. Right? Because there is something common, it is not possible for them to absolutely reject the object, existence of object. You cannot put the entire responsibility on the subject alone, sir. Therefore, they are at fault. That is the first one. They err in rejecting the participation of the object. They are mistaken. No doubt, participation of the subject is a must. Without that participation of the subject, perception is not possible. That is correct. But that doesn't mean it is entirely subject. Right? Continue.
As opposed to the idealists, the realists have observed the creation of the world is due to the action of the object, that the object alone is responsible for the perception. In the absence of the object, there can be no world. The realists assert that, but they also further declare that nothing apart from the object is responsible for creating the world. The subject has no part to play in it. Here again, the realists are right insofar as they hold that the world could not have arisen without the subject. But they err when they declare nothing other than the object is responsible for the creation. They go wrong when they reject the participation of the subject. The Vedantic theory states that neither the subject nor the object per se produces the world. It takes both the subject perceiver and the object perceived for creating it. The idealists and the realists have to come together to account for its creation. Neither of them can possibly do it alone. When the subject of the idealists and the object of the realists meet, there arises the phenomenon of the world. Action and reaction takes place. The interaction between the subject and object, between the perceiver and perceived, between thought and thing produces the world.
Produces the world means produces the world by perceiving the world through the perception of the world. Because the proof of the existence of the world, the creation of the world, is a perception of it. Therefore, we say that. Now he says the subject and object has to come together. If idealist is making a mistake of that, the realist is making a mistake of what? He says, no. It is, object is having independent existence, responsible for perception, that's it. It is the assertion of the realist. They go to the extent of saying there is nothing apart from the object is responsible for the creation. That is their mistake. Same mistake. While again we see the objects existing, there are multiple objects existing all around us. So many things are existing around us, but all of them are not getting perceived. If objects were the one who is responsible, then how the mechanism should be? Objects should be forcing itself to draw my attention. Correct? Object is there, the flower is standing there, that flower should be drawing the mind towards it. Imagine that is what is done by all the objects. Imagine all the objects, all the colors, forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, everything were to be drawing the mind forcefully, then your life will be in chaos, because all of them are equal in strength. You cannot say the smell has greater value than the color and form, nor can you say it is the sound, nor can you say it is the touch. Which one is more? Now all of them are equal. When all of them were having equal one strength, all of them were to be pulling you out. Then what would be happening in life? Life will not have any consistency. Life will become chaotic. Therefore, we say even idealists stand is wrong, means same rule goes to realist also. Because that is not what our experience is. They are not drawing your attention. You are paying attention to it. They don't have. They are passive in nature. The sense objects are passive in nature. Actively, they don't draw our attention. There is no act on their side to draw you. It is you, your mind goes and alights there. It is not, that is pulling you outside. There is nothing in the world that is pulling you towards it. You are getting pulled in that direction. Why? Because of your something in you is moving in that direction. So therefore, we say, oh realists, you are wrong in saying objects are entirely responsible for the perception. Because the nature of objects is what? passive. They are not active. They just exist, that's it. There is no action from their side. Therefore, for perception, you can't put the responsibility on them. Now, idealist putting responsibility on the subject is because of one reason. Realist is also making the same mistake of putting the responsibility on the object is also wrong because of this reason. So, both of them were wrong. If both of them were wrong, then how the perception happens? That's where Vedanta comes and says, my dear fellows, the subject and object has to come together for the creation to happen, for the perception to happen. And you cannot put entire responsibility on the subject, nor can you put the entire responsibility on the object. They have to come together. Then immediately you will ask, how much of percentage, sir? Now here it is equal percentage, 50-50 it is. Equally subject is responsible, equally object is also responsible for the creation. And now he is explaining that. Read that.
Examine a perception, the perception of a flower. How does it take place? The Vedantic theory states that the quality attribute of flower exists in the flower as the object. The thought of the flower exists in the mind as the subject. The subject impinges upon the object to bring about the perception of the flower. The union of the thought and the quality of flower produces it. If either of them is absent, there can be no perception. Say the flower is not there. Instead, a stone is in the place of the flower. Then you will not perceive the flower. Likewise, if the thought of the flower is not in the mind, instead another thought has preoccupied the mind, you will not perceive the flower even if it were there. Therefore, it takes both the existence of the thought and the quality of the flower to bring about the perception of the flower, the creation of the flower.
This is the base. This is the base. First get the basic concept. Now he is introducing few more words. Right. Now what is the words that we need to get in here is the thought of the flower and the qualities of the flower. So when we say subject, what we are referring to? We are referring to the thought of the flower. What is object? Object means qualities of the flower. Right. What is the qualities of the flower? It has a particular color, particular shape, particular fragrance, particular feel, etc. A particular taste. All that it has. Instead of a flower, you keep a stone. The qualities of a stone is totally different from the qualities of a flower. Isn't it? So, when you say flower, what defines a flower as a flower is the distinct qualities. Right? What is the difference? It is because of that specific quality, set of qualities that exist. The specific qualities that exist in the stone defines the stone. So when we say qualities, what are we referring to? We are referring to that rupa, the form. Don't say nama. See, usually these two words have been coming together constantly throughout for all of us. Nama rupa, nama rupa, nama rupa. No. The nama rupa discussion should come in the next chapter. Okay. Here, qualities means what? The properties of the flower. What are the properties of the flower? These are the properties. These properties were grouped in few words. The form, the color, shape, the quality, means the gunas. And then what does a flower do? This you can say, right? Now don't add this also, because that name flower is a taught one to us. Okay, the word flower we are using is a name. In English, you are trained means you use the word flower, right? In Sanskrit, you say pushpam, right? In Tamil, we say malar or else poo. Poo means it means flower. Another word we use is malar, flower. Now, the name was given by us actually. Name comes afterwards, right? Now, to group all this together, we have given that name called flower. So, first step is the thought of the flower means the qualities. For all the qualities grouped together, difficult, no? Every time for us to refer to it. Imagine that I have to refer to the particular fragrance, particular color, particular shape, particular thing. Very difficult. Therefore, we have a name given to that group of qualities called flower. And then further we wanted to refine it. All flowers are not same, right? Rose is different, lotus is different, jasmine is different, all different. So what we have to say now, what is that distinguishes a rose from a jasmine, a lotus? Immediately, what are the things that you get? Immediately in your mind, you will be picturizing, visualizing a particular shape, particular color, particular fragrance, particular usage. Yeah. Rose flower, Valentine's Day. You'll remember. On Valentine's Day, rose I didn't get, therefore I am getting, lotus. If I go and offer 3 lotus to a girl, he'll say, or suddenly the fellow says cauliflower. Oh no, because that usage is there. That is also included in that. All that put together is referred as thought of the flower. Then other side is the qualities of the flower. So I have the corresponding thought in me, and then the qualities are existing in the flower. Right? When these two things come together, when I focus instead of the flower thought in my mind, if I were to be having the thought of Satchidananda Swarupa of Brahman, is what I am thinking, let's say. Parabrahma Swarupa of Panduranga. I'm cherishing the beauty of that Panduranga. I'm enjoying that. Or I'm having some other thought, let's say. Why give example of other thoughts? At least this thought will give us example I'm giving. Imagine you are fully engrossed in the thought of Panduranga. The flower may be there in front of you, but you will not get that smell, you will not see it. Nothing will happen to you. Why? Because in your mind, the thought of the flower is not there, the thought of the Lord Panduranga is there. Lord's thought occupied your mind fully. Therefore, this is not. Same way, your mind may be thinking of a flower, but if the flower is not there outside, you can't see it. So what is required now? There has to be a thought of the flower plus the thought of this. This is a very basic step. So first we said subject and object. What is the meaning of subject, sir? Subject means the thought of that object. And object. What is object? Object is distinguished by that particular qualities. A group of qualities were existing in the object. And corresponding to that, I have that thought in me. So when my thought perches itself on that object which has those qualities, there arises a perception of that object. I have created that object. I say that object is there. Up to this, perception wise, no problem. The next step is where the problem is for all of us. The second mistake we make, the second step is where we make the mistake. First step, there is no mistake. Right? The second step we give is the error of the idealist and the realist. What is the error? Both of them have taken not only the other to be irrelevant. When I am rejecting the other, I have asserted the one. Idealist asserts the subject, rejecting the object. Realist is asserting the reality of the object, rejecting the subject. Both the cases, they are wrong in rejecting. Vedanta says, correct. Also, both are wrong in asserting the reality of the subject and the reality of the object also. So, subject and object coming together. So follow this carefully. Once you understand this, theory of perception is just a read through. Very simple after that. Idealist and realist, what are they doing, sir? They are making two steps. First, he established the mistake of theirs. First mistake of theirs is what? Rejecting the other. Along with rejecting the other, they assert this. They assert one, reject the other. Vedanta comes and says, no, man. Both of them need to come together. So when they come together, what is that we are saying has to come together? Idealist, your subject is to come. Realist, your object has to come to create perception. Correct. But then, this is where Vedantic perception starts. You see, otherwise it will be like standing as a mediator between these two fellows, peacemaker. Everything is needed. That's not Vedantic theory of perception, please. You see, correct. You rejecting the other is wrong means equally you are asserting the reality of the subject is also wrong. Asserting the reality of the object is also wrong. Both are wrong, my dear fellows. It's like, how? This is compassionate teaching. You see, straight away we don't attack. You say, so far you are wrong. See, this is okay, but that is wrong. You say, okay. Then I am, okay. This is what we call as, negotiation skills. When you start a negotiation, you should start with what always? Negotiation should never start with where you disagree. Negotiation should start always with where you agree. Find a common one. What is common? You saying subject is needed, agreed. You saying object is needed, agreed. But then, along with that, you are saying one more thing. What is it? Object is real, subject is real. Now Vedanta says, no. Both the subject and object combining together and creating that perception. That perception is not absolute. That is not real. That is only surface. There is something underneath it. Something on which that is standing. The substratum is there. The substratum is real. It is just an appearance. But for the appearance to come, these two things have to match. Remember that. So in this chapter, what he is showing is only one. What is it, sir? The very fact that the interaction of the subject and object has to happen means there has to be a base. If both of us have to meet, means both of us have to log into the same Zoom ID, no? Isn't it? You're also logging into the same Zoom. Imagine you log into, Microsoft Team. Microsoft Team, right? There is one platform where these meetings can happen. Imagine you log into that Microsoft Team, I log into Zoom. Can we meet? Meeting is not possible. The very fact that meeting is happening means there has to be a common platform. Now Vedanta says the fact that subject and object have to interact, there has to be a common platform for both. Now find out who is providing the common platform. Theory of perception goes here. Stretching that is the next chapter. It says, now is the structure or the substratum, which is real. The structure is perception, creation. The substratum is Brahman, pure consciousness, Atman, whatever. Right? Which is real now? Because the substratums have a totally different qualities and different properties and different dimension. The structure is very different. Now we are accounting for the structure. The very fact that there is a structure standing, we have to pose it, there has to be a substratum. The very fact that there is a tall building standing, there has to be a foundation. Even though we don't see foundation, isn't it? Do you see foundation anywhere? You don't see the foundation. The roots are not visible. The roots are invisible beneath the ground. But we know for sure if a tree is standing, it is possible only because of the roots, even though root is invisible. So, a structure cannot stand without a substratum. The interaction of these two things, because thought is of a totally different platform. The properties of thought is totally different. What is the simple thing? Thought is subtle, invisible. That invisible, subtle thought is transacting with the concrete, visible, gross object. How they are meeting? There has to be a mediator who is facilitating the meeting of these two to happen. Without that facilitator, it is not possible. So theory of perception does what? The purpose of theory of perception is not to reconcile idealist and realist. Keep fighting, who cares about it? That's not our problem. Our problem is what? Russia, Ukraine is not our problem. Our problem is what? Indians are there. Take them out, full stop. That's not our problem. Isn't it? Same way. First thing what we are doing, priority is for what now? After doing this, we can do whatever we want. Same way, here the first priority is what? Is a realist, subject and object comes together to produce the perception. The perception is a creation. Then we say, now inference. Now comes the inferential things. What is the inference? If these insubstantial and the substantial to meet, who's making that meeting possible? What is making that conversion possible, meeting possible? There has to be something. A platform is needed, a substratum is needed. What is that substratum? We say the substratum is there, this side has pure consciousness, and that side is Brahman. Then we say this pure consciousness and that Brahman are not two different things, they have to be the same equation. This is the equation here, right? So the qualities of means all this, the gunas, the properties and all that put together exist where? Exist in the flower. Then the thought of the flower exists in the mind. When the thought of the flower contacts the qualities of the flower, there is a perception of the flower. When that perception completes, there is an existence of the flower, creation of the flower. That's the meaning of creation. Don't take the word creation to be manufacturing something. You don't understand it like that. If you understand that way, you will be lost here in this context, right? Because we are accounting for already perceiving world. I am already seeing the world. Now we are accounting for it. And in that accounting purpose, process, we are making a mistake. What is a mistake? We are ascribing a reality to the subject and a reality to the object and a reality to the creation. We assert in the reality of it. Then we go back to the fundamental analysis we have done, reality and appearance. That's why we have covered all that in the first class itself. Remember, I told you there are 4 possible relationships between appearance and reality. Just because something appears doesn't mean it has to be real. And the real need not be always appearing. Nor can you take a stand that real will never appear. Then what is the relationship between appearance and reality? Is the basic discussion in theory of perception. Here we say, beyond this perception, beyond the subject and object meeting, what we need to understand is there is a substratum. Up to this point you come, that is enough. Right? Okay, sir, then what is this structure or substratum? That we will analyze in the next chapter. Right? In this chapter, what we are doing is only this much. We are saying subject alone is not, object alone is not. Both come together. Both coming together is not possible without a common platform. Question is, what is that common platform? That is different. But without a common platform, can they meet? Because both are standing in totally two different worlds. Because mind can never go outside, nor the object can enter inside. Mind cannot go outside, nor can the. It's not that I have a thought of a flower. Means the mind has gone outside or what? It's not like that. Figuratively, we will say, mind going out, mind is extroverted, moving out, and all those things. Factually speaking, it is not moved outside anywhere. It is still within you only. It is standing wherever it is standing. It has not moved anywhere. Right. But then the problem is, then you may ask, sir, suppose if the mind itself has gone and stood on the flower, suppose if you take the flower away, your mind poche, sir. Give me mind. Don't take the mind along with that. Take only the flower. Poetry, you can say. But in philosophy, that's not the way it works. It is two different dynamics. So, you say the subject and object interacts. That interacted one creates perception. And then we say, sir, subject is of a different texture, different form. Object is of a totally different form. This did not go inside that. That did not come outside this. Both of them are standing in their own space, in their own position, but then they interact. Medium has to be there, no? Like I'm able to see a flower. The medium is what? Light. Isn't it? There is a light as a medium. Without that medium, is the perception possible of the flower? Not possible. Now we are asking, what is that medium? What is that medium through which I am seeing the very light itself? For the flower, light is a medium. For the light, what is a medium? You say, the thought. For the thought, what is a medium? Like that we go deeper and deeper. And there we say, there is something standing, without which this interaction of subject-object not possible. Number one. Number two, what is standing as a substratum for the subject and what is standing as a substratum for the object, both have to be the same. Because if you say this substratum is different, that substratum is different, then you have to ask, how did those two interact? Because it has to be a common platform, otherwise it is not possible. Therefore we say this substratum and that substratum both are same. So the purpose of theory of perception is to establish what? Establish the existence of the substratum. This is the base. From this base, further extension is the Maya concept. Right. Without this base, if you go to Maya concept, you will go into tremendous confusion. Right. So go through this portion again. Then we will read through in the next class.